Hello everyone, it's Professor Horlacher, and this video is intended to help you do homework number 10. And homework number 10 has two parts. There's an analysis part that is just above this exercise. This is page 196, exercise 12.5. And then there's this exercise in which you are asked to complete in 4 parts and add an analysis up through the first chord of the 5th bar. We're going to work on the rest of it. This is a very long phrase, and so you're going to start it out, and by the time we're done with this video, we'll have an ending to this. So a couple of things I want to do first to get a good sense of how to make this phrase sound very goal-directed and very connected, that the chords themselves sound good and the melodies themselves sound good. Pull all of those different things together. So the first thing I want to make sure I do is that as I'm writing, I'm also hearing how this goes. I think it's pretty clear that this is an exercise in A minor. And so I'm going to start familiarizing myself with this bass line. Maybe I'll have one chord overlapping between your assignment and this video. Here is A minor. So here's the A. And I want to get a sense of how this bass line is progressing in terms of the shape of the phrase. Where is it that it's in the early part of the phrase doing things like prolonging the tonic? Where does a big predominant and cadence motion come in? And what kinds of events do the figured bass symbols tell us to use as we shape that phrase forward? So as we spell the chords, we also want to be aware of their scale degree identities and see some of the patterns that might emerge. So I'm going to sing this bass line through, starting right here. That's a scale degree 3 in the bass. I'm going to sing it with scale degrees, and I hope that you'll do the same thing with me here. So there's scale degree 3, and I'm listening for how this phrase is shaped. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 7, 1, 6, 7, 1, 4, 5, 5, 1. Now you've probably noticed that there's a whole lot of scale degree 1 in this example in the early parts of it, and a lot of 1 being decorated by other scale degrees. And then it has a very typical cadential pattern at the end here. There we go. 4, 5, 5, 1. So here is where the main predominant of the phrase comes in. And when I look at the bass note, scale degree 2, and I see a 6-5 figure under it, I know that this scale degree 4 is the third of the chord, and therefore this must be a 2-6-5. Right? And I see a 5 and a 4 here. That looks a little bit strange. It must be that there is a non-chord tone in this figuration. And I see, aha, that 4 resolves down to a 3. A figure with a sharp next to it always refers to a third above the bass. Looks like there is a 4-3 suspension going on in this chord. So if the 4 is the non-chord tone, the suspension, this is a 5-3 chord with scale degree 5 in the bass. That's not a surprise. Okay, so we have a 5 with a 4-3 going on it and a 7th coming in. And this scale degree 1, these are also suspensions. So this is a 1 chord that's going to be decorated by a 9th and a 4th above the bass that resolve to an 8-3, which looks like an 8-5-3. Okay, so there's a cadence part of the phrase. These scale degree 1s here, look, we have quite a sequence of them in a row. Right here. And the figures tell us we can do something interesting. Even though the bass isn't moving, the upper parts are going to move. Here is a 1, 5, 3, and above it, that 5 and 3 is going to move to 6 and 4, and in the absence of a figure here, we assume that there's a 5, 3 there, and so that looks like that, and this is a pedal 6, 4 type of configuration. The 1 is being decorated by the 6th and a 4th above the bass. Pedal always has the same note in the bass between the 6, 4 and the previous and the following notes. Okay. Here, oops, let's turn that back around. This spot right here might also look like it has some interesting figures in it. If I were to spell a 5 and a 2 above the bass and resolve them, I would end up on a 6, 3. And so that's 6, 3 with a leading tone. Leading tone means the third is in the bass, or the 6, 3 tells us that, and a third down from G sharp is E, which is 5. And you can see here that I need to be good at figuring out intervals. I need to know that 6, 3 stands for first inversion, as well as 6th and 3rd above the bass. And I need to know that an E is scale degree 5 in A minor. All of those skills need to come together quickly for me to do this. And 5, 6s always resolve to 1s. Okay, so that's one of the ways in which the tonic is being decorated. A 2, 3 is a suspension in the bass. Okay, here we have the example again. I've taken out a lot of the things we wrote on it, but I will return the Roman numeral analysis to it. So we have here a 1, 6 chord, a 7 diminished 6 chord with a 7, 6 suspension over it, a 1 being decorated by a pedal 6, 4 and returning to 1. Okay, how do we label this chord here? We discovered that these are suspensions and these represent the chord tones. So the A is being held over, but the members of the chord actually are built on E natural, which is the root of this particular chord. So this is a 5 chord with some suspensions attached to it. 1, talked about why this 4 is major rather than minor, as is typically the case. A 5, 6, 5, a 1. There's our 2 half diminished 6, 5 chord. And here's the 5. Again, this is the suspended, excuse me, let me erase that. This is the suspended tone. So this is a 5 chord in root position that gets a 7th added to it on its second quarter note. And these are suspensions, so this is a 1 chord, and these are the chord tones off of which the suspension comes and to which it will resolve. So my next step is to write a soprano note, a soprano line. And there are a lot of things that help me do this. One is I know a lot about certain cadential, or excuse me, baseline scale degree patterns that will help me. I know that cadences are very planned events, so I can fit some of that in. And so I don't necessarily always write the soprano line note by note by note, but put in some tentative things that will help me shape it as a whole later on. Okay, so let's set up the cadence, and maybe I've decided I want, oops, let's get that A looking a little bit better than that. Here we are. I want a perfect authentic cadence. And you can all just remember that that's an A, even though my pen isn't cooperating very well. Okay. And I'm going to get to that A either from G sharp or from B. All right. Maybe I'll decide on B. And of course, now I can't get the B to right. There we go. B, B, A. This is not a cadential 6/4, so we're not going to go 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I can look at this 2, 6, 5 chord. I can remember how to spell 2, 6, 5 quickly. I can also remember that there's going to be a 5th and a 6th sounding above the bass. So if I'm quick with intervals, I know that's an A and a B. And I know that the chord has a B as its root and a D in it. Maybe I'll come from the D in contrary motion to the bass, and I won't end up with 3 B's in a row there. So da 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 da. Let's shape up my B a little bit. Okay, that's good. All right, 3, 2, 1 in the bass. We'll go back to our old prototype here, which is 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, I'm on the third above the bass on the 1 chord, and I see that it's going to go to fourth above the bass, which is what my figures tell me. So I'll go up to that D, and we talked about how this is a 5-3, so that D will come back down to C. There we go. So I've taken care of the pedal 6-4. All right. Now, how do I figure out what pitches I need here? During the suspension, there will be a 2nd and a 5th above the bass, but the chord itself is a 5-6. Okay? And so a 5 is an E, G sharp, B. Don't want to double the G sharp, it's the leading tone, so I'll cross that one out because it's already there. So I need to add B's and E's. And it looks like my soprano is close to B, so I'll pick that as my soprano. I need a 2nd above that A, which is the B. Okay, that looks good. I need a 5th above that A, which is an E. Well, I know that I need an E. And I know that that 2nd needs to resolve down to a 3rd, which is the B. Well, I've got the B there, so I'm all taken care of. So basically, all I need to do here is construct a good 5-6-3 chord, and my suspension is in the bass, already taken care of. All right, I don't want 2 G sharps. I definitely would like to have an E in there somewhere, and another B. Okay, so when I get to filling in my inner parts, I know what belongs there. Okay. Okay, so I've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Guess I'll come back down to 1 here. That makes a nice soprano line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I know that I'm closing 4, 2, 2, 1. So I need to think about what would be a nice way to fill in that space right there. Okay, a 4-6 chord has a 6th above the bass, which happens to be D. All right, and a 5-6 chord also has a D in it. It's the 7th of the chord, so I want to make sure that I resolve it down to C. There we go. All right, let's have a listen to these outer parts. Here's the key area, and we're on a 1-6 chord. Neighbor motion around it, bass is suspended. Good. That sounds pretty straightforward. The last thing I'm going to do is add some inner parts for the 2nd measure we're working on. The rest of them I think you can figure out yourself, but since we have some suspensions in there, I thought it would be interesting to do that. Remember, we figured out the pitches of the 5 chord by knowing that it's a 6th and a 3rd, but I needed to get the 2nd above the bass there, above the bass or in the bass, and from B up to A, I've already got that. So that's in good shape, and the suspension resolved down by step and was prepared as it should be. Okay, so let's work previous to that 5 chord. E is the common tone and then the alto. Now I see here that there is CB going in the soprano line. So I sure don't want to precede the B in the tenor line with a C. And more than that, it's a good idea to double the root. Okay, so I have not written parallels here. And as I said in class, a good way to make sure you don't write parallels, I see that B is doubled in this second chord and that the soprano is going down to A. So I absolutely cannot go down to A in the tenor, so I will go up to C. Okay. 4/6 chord, D, F sharp, and A. We don't have an A there yet, so we want to make sure we get an A in there. There would be a place to put one, in which case I could add a D, which is right next door to the E. And let's make sure I did not write any parallels or fifths. Ah, look at this. A and E are a fifth in the third chord. I'm okay because they both moved down, but they moved down to a space of a sixth. So I did not write parallels right there. Okay, a 5/6/5 chord has to be complete. All 6/5, all inversions of seventh chords need to be complete. I already have the G sharp and the D, so I need an E and a B, and that one pretty much writes itself. I resolve the seventh, and I return to a 1 chord. Okay, I hope that this video helps you speed along your way by using all of your skills at once, thinking about how the figured bass helps you spell quickly, thinking about how Roman numerals help you put in voices quickly, thinking about what kinds of scale degree patterns also help you to solve something in an efficient manner. And good luck on homework number 10.